We start with the play that forced the rulebook to mind the landing. A 7-footer sprints at a shooter, stretches a leg a little too far, and suddenly the court needs a no parking zone. One closeout, one landing, and everyone starts measuring inches like it's a home inspection. Kawhi Leonard rises in Game 1 of the 2017 Western Conference Finals on May 14th at Oracle Arena, drops and twists on Pachulia's foot. Was it malicious, sloppy, or just the kind of hazard that forces a league to draw bright lines? The debate didn't settle anything, the tape did. Slow-mo angles showed a foot arriving where a jumper was supposed to land, and that was enough to make the policy people busy. Enter the so-called Zaza rule. If a defender invades a shooter's landing space, officials can call a flagrant or technical regardless of intent, and they can upgrade it on review, even when there's no contact but an apparent attempt to injure. That meant coaches drilled controlled closeouts, hands high, body on a straight line, and feet that stopped short. Those points of emphasis kept showing up in 2017 memos and continued in refresher clips. Part of a broader freedom to land push the league had been building for years. Refs focused on sequencing too. The ball must be in the shooting motion when contact happens. Being too close became too costly. The league turned a borderline habit into a safety standard that cleaned up contests, and the next safety chapter wouldn't involve feet at all. Next came a different kind of safety play, one written in red ink. One press conference on November 7, 1991 turned a health headline into a basketball policy. Magic announced his HIV diagnosis, and within weeks, the league had to answer a question it hadn't asked before. What happens when there's blood on the floor during a game? Fans wanted reassurance, players wanted consistency, coaches wanted a protocol they could explain in a huddle without turning into a medical seminar. The NBA had to balance safety with privacy in an era when HIV was widely misunderstood and the stakes felt higher than any playoff series. So the league wrote the blood rule. If a player is bleeding, he leaves immediately, receives treatment, and can't return until he's cleared. If the jersey is bloodstained, it gets swapped. The court gets sanitized. Then, and only then, the player returns. This mirrored public health guidance at the time, minimized blood-to-blood contact, and it arrived through league memos that standardized what used to be handled on the fly. Stoppages got calm, quick, and routine. Instead of panic or rumors, you got a towel, a new jersey, and a restart. The payoff was clarity. Medical safety became part of gameplay, a rule applied without drama, and it stuck. Every level of basketball borrowed it. And once the league defined how to handle contact that breaks skin, it had to define how to handle contact that breaks tempers. So the league had to calm the noise too. Enter. What happens when one player turns arguing into an art form and goes for a record nobody wanted? You get Rashid treating the whistle like a metronome and the league scrambling for a volume knob. During 2001, he piled up 41 technicals, a number that reads like a typo until you realize his soundtrack was constant commentary. Coaches tried to redirect the fire. Referees warned, gestured, and then hit the button. Teams planned rotations around the chance that he might be ejected on a mood swing. Before 2006, there wasn't a consistent accumulation penalty beyond fines, so a player could stack techs all year with no automatic suspension. The league needed a brake pedal, not another lecture, so it drew a bright line. Hit 16 technical fouls in a regular season and you're automatically suspended for one game without pay. Cross 18, 20, 22, and it stacks. Another game for every 2 more. In the playoffs, the limit shrinks to 7 because every outburst matters more. Fines climb too, starting at $2,000 and increasing with each beep of the horn. The effects showed up fast. Tech counts dipped across rosters. Stars who used to bark through timeouts learned to reroute it. More body language, fewer magic words. Late in tight games, you could see the calculation on faces. Points on the board, beat points to the sky. She didn't just get whistled, he got a speed limit installed. Next up, a different kind of limit, one that needed stricter whistles and stronger bolts. Shaquille O'Neal made officials rewrite pages and arenas rethink hardware. Free throws on one side, steal on the other. One giant forced 2 fixes at once, the rulebook and the hardware store. On the court, teams hacked away at a weakness. Around the rim, arenas braced for impact. When a 7-foot, 300-pound center barrels through, you don't just coach schemes, you file building permits. Hack-a-Shaq took a simple idea and turned it into a slog. Foul the poor free throw shooter away from the ball, stop the clock, and force him to earn points one at a time. Games slowed, rhythms died, and the scoreboard felt like it was wading through wet cement. The NBA finally stepped in for 2016-17. Away from the play fouls would now trigger one free throw and the ball not only in the last 2 minutes of the fourth and overtime, but in the final 2 minutes of every period. If defenders grabbed before an inbound pass was released, it drew the same penalty. That nudged teams off the tactic, reshaped late game plans for bigs like DeAndre Jordan and Andre Drummond, who inherited the hack-a-Shaq target and smoothed end of quarter flow. Meanwhile, the equipment had to survive the collisions. After Daryl Dawkins shattered backboards, the NBA finally upgraded to breakaway rims and tougher, shatter-resistant backboards league-wide, and Shaq stress-tested every bolt whenever he finished. Through contact, those upgrades kept highlights safe and kept games moving. The league tightened whistles and tightened bolts. Next came a different kind of free throw drama, built not on missed form but on manufactured contact. James Harden, who turned timing into leverage. What if stepbacks came with a side hustle, collecting free throws? That was the gig. Harden turned rhythm dribbles into an invoice, sliding left or right, snapping arms through gaps and stopping on a dime so a trailing defender ran straight into his shoulder. Half the arena yelled savvy, the other half yelled scam, and referees had to sort intent from theater in real time. By 22-21, the league stepped in with a cleanup. The guidelines told officials to stop rewarding non-basketball moves, launching into a defender at odd angles, kicking the leg out, veering off path to force body contact, or hooking an arm to trap a contesting hand. Training clips in the video rulebook walked refs through the cues, eyes on the shooter's line, look for the unnatural lean, check whether the offensive player initiated the collision. The point wasn't a new statute, it was a different whistle on the same words. The impact showed up on the stat sheet. Harden's free throw attempts dipped hard, over a 28% drop that first season, and the early 2021 22 weeks were cold splash for anyone living on those tricks. He adjusted by toggling into more playmaking and cleaner drives, picking his spots rather than hunting arms. Craft got curated, the whistle went from auto to earned, and before Harden refined the modern syllabus, another two-guard taught the class with a simple head fake. Dwayne Wade made that lesson look effortless. What if a head fake could move the rulebook? Wade made that a real thing. He'd stop on a dime, show the ball, watch a defender leave their feet, then jump into the space they just vacated. Whistle, free throws, repeat. It wasn't flashy, it was clinical, and it taught scorers everywhere that the easiest path to points might be the defender's arms. Wade's version had layers. He'd sell the shot with tight footwork, hold the ball just long enough to bait a contest, then rise forward or sideways to meet the body. The contact came after the fake, not before, which put officials in a bind. Was it a shooting motion or a decision to create a collision? For years, the benefit of the doubt went to the scorer, and Wade turned that gray area into a routine. Coaches groaned that guarding him without fouling felt impossible. By 2021-22, the crackdown arrived. The league's points of education told refs not to reward non-basketball moves, no more sideways lunges after a pump fake, no more stepping into a defender just to fabricate contact. The video rulebook used pump fake clips, including Wade-style sequences, to train officials on sequencing. Was the shot already underway, or did the offensive player seek? Contact first, Crafty Wing saw fewer freebies and adjusted. The lesson plan became the list of forbidden tricks. If Wade taught the class, the next chapter was about hands up at the triple threat and what happens when arms become toll booths. Which brings us to the master of turning positioning into profit. Give a 7-foot wingspan a ball in triple threat and he'll turn your forearms into toll booths. Durant's rip-through took that first jab step moment and converted it into attacks on wrists. He'd hold, read your hand placement, then sweep the ball up through your arms so fast you heard the whistle before the net moved. Defenders froze with hands high like they were being detained. If they dropped them, KD raised up clean. If they kept them there, he'd rip through, snap into a sudden heave, and stroll to the stripe. That auto bonus didn't last. Before 2011-12, the league drew a new line. Contact on a rip-through counts as a common, non-shooting foul unless the player is clearly in a real shooting motion. No automatic 2 freebies. Ball out on the side. If the defense was in the penalty, free throws still came, but the easy cash out disappeared. Durant adjusted. He blended the rip into actual shots, catch, sweep, then flow straight into a jumper so the motion looked continuous and legit. Others followed, shifting from bait to rhythm. That tweak previewed later cleanups on non-basketball tricks, with officials trained to spot abnormal launches and forced collisions. What used to be 2 free throws became a side out and a sigh. And if arms set the trap here, legs were about to test another boundary. Reggie Miller turned that next frontier into choreography. How far can a shooter fling a leg before the whistle points the other way? Miller kept testing the boundary. He'd rise into a jumper, turn his hips, and send a shin toward any defender inching inside his airspace. Contact followed, arms went up, and the scorer's table added 3+1. The move felt clever to some and cheap to others, but the reaction was the same. Groans, side eyes, and coaches begging for clarity. That clarity landed before the 2012 season. Officials got a directive. If a shooter unnaturally extends a leg to initiate contact, call an offensive foul. No more freebies for a theatrical kick. This synced with the anti-flopping initiative, which added a second layer of risk. Sell it too hard and face a post-game fine or escalation on review. The league's video rulebook rolled out clips of abnormal leg angles, showing refs how to spot the kick and separate normal follow-through from stunt work. Replay helped clean it up in real time. There were sequences where a whistle awarded free throws, then video showed the leg hunting contact. Officials flipped it to an offensive foul. Shooters adjusted footwork, landing more straight down, using subtle fade-outs instead of windshield wiper kicks, and relying on space, creation instead of collisions. Leg day stopped earning free throws. The next change wouldn't judge a limb, it would redraw the court to make scoring fair again. George Mikan, who made the paint feel like homework. One big man made the lane feel like a phone booth. George Mikan planted himself near the rim, hooked over either shoulder, and lived on putbacks. In the early 1950s, defenders ran out of options. With the lane only 6 feet wide, help arrived too late and boxouts had nowhere to form. Possessions tilted toward the basket like a table with one short leg. So in 1951, the NBA pulled out a ruler. The free throw lane doubled from 6 to 12 feet, and the offensive 3-second rule, already on the books, suddenly mattered a lot more, stopping anyone from homesteading in the paint. Those two tweaks worked together. Post entries now started a step or two farther, angles changed, and footwork mattered more. Even for a 6'10" star, those extra inches turned automatic hooks into contested ones. The wider paint didn't erase him, it recalibrated everyone else. Teams could front, send help on time, and recover without giving up layups. Offenses adjusted with more ball movement, more cuts, and shots initiated outside the low block. Coaches layered actions to pull centers off the rim, then flash them back in rhythm, instead of letting a giant camp and feast. They redrew the lane to balance power, and the lesson stuck, but as soon as geometry slowed one giant, the next one arrived and forced another set of measurements. If 12 feet couldn't contain him, the league tried 16. Wilt turned the area near the rim into his personal workshop. Deep seals, quick spins, and putbacks that beat rotations by a step. You could front him, send help, or foul. None of it solved the math of a 7-footer with bounce and touch. He didn't just score, he toyed with the rim while everyone else counted misses they weren't getting. So in 1964, the NBA widened the lane to 16 feet, pushing post-ups a stride farther from the hoop. Those extra inches mattered, entry angles got steeper, baby hooks started from tougher spots, and rebound battles spread out. Around the same time, stricter goaltending rules limited swats near the cylinder and erased the insurance of knocking shots away on the way down. The message was simple: win the possession before the ball reaches its apex, not after. The ripple went beyond Wilt's box scores. Offenses leaned more into face-up actions, high post touches, and mid-range jumpers created by quick pivots and short drives. Spacing wasn't a buzzword yet, but the blueprint formed: drag bigs out, move the ball, attack gaps created by wider starts and cleaner airspace around the lane. They didn't stop Wilt, they moved the floor away from him. And soon, the league would shift its attention from power in the paint to the legality of a dribble that could freeze a room and the image of the player doing it. So the spotlight shifted to the handle and the image that came with it. One player broke ankles and dress codes, Iverson kept the ball low, palms turned, then snapped it across his body so fast defenders swore it paused mid-bounce. That low carry line lived in the gray, and refs had meetings about where control ends and carry begins. Coaches told guards to defend his hips, not the ball, because reaching meant a whistle or a viral highlight. His off-court look lit the second fuse. The league watched the tunnel and saw baggy fits, chains, and ink in every frame. In 2005, the NBA issued a dress code for all official team business or conservative attire only. It was about optics, an attempt to steer the brand as hip-hop aesthetics defined the era. Iverson said the pushback felt personal and aimed at him and those who followed his lead, a reaction to how his style spread across locker rooms. Players and media argued culture versus professionalism, and the rule became a proxy war. Then the twist, the tunnel became a runway. The code evolved and creativity surged. Pre-game walks turned into curated looks, and even execs joked their own styles blended hip-hop/front office. The league tried to police the cross and the cuffs and still couldn't contain the influence. Control the show too tightly and you invite a new timer. Next up, what happens when backing down turns into a slow drip on the shot clock? Charles Barkley gave the league a new kind of stall. What if a post-up doubled as a nap? Barkley turned reverse walking into an offensive plan. He'd catch on the wing, angle the shoulder, and nudge a defender backward like a slow bulldozer. 12 seconds later, you had a hook, a foul, or an entire audience checking the shot clock. The league stepped in for 1999 with a small but loud fix: the 5-second back to the basket rule. If you're in the front court, below the free throw line extended, and you're dribbling with your back or side to the hoop while actively guarded, the count starts. Hit 5, it's a violation. The count ends if you pick it up, move above the line, or the ball gets knocked away. This wasn't anti-post play, it was anti-stall. Keep the move, lose the marathon. The effect showed up in rhythm. Wing post-ups had to flow, face, jab, go. Bigs and power guards learned to attack off the first bump, hit a quick spin, or kick to shooters before the count crept past 3. Coaches used it as a built-in clock: 2 dribbles to probe, 1 to commit, then pass if the helper tags. The rule rewarded quick counters, inside-out threes, and decisive footwork instead of long backdowns that flattened possessions. A small timer sped up the bruising arts. Take away the slow squeeze and you encourage touch, timing, and craft, the kind of pivot that can turn a power game into something elegant. So the focus shifts from tempo to technique at its most basic, what you're allowed to do above the rim. A college rule tried to shrink a superstar and created a legend instead. In 1967, the NCAA, not the NBA, banned dunking, and it stayed that way through the 1975-76 season. The move, often linked to Lou Alcindor at UCLA, aimed to blunt a player who could elevate, finish, and make the rim look like a routine stop. When Kareem entered the NBA in 1969, dunking remained legal in the pros, but his college constraints had already reshaped his toolbox. Enter the skyhook. Long step, high release, soft arc out of reach and out of tricks for defenders. Kareem built it under the ban and then carried it forward, turning a workaround into a weapon he could deploy from either block, the lane, or mid-post. The unintended result was a broader offensive toolkit. Instead of relying on vertical force, bigs drilled touch shots, footwork sequences, and counters that started with balance rather than blast. The rule shaped a decade of college hoops. Coaches emphasized pivots, angles, and glass finishes. Prospects learned to score without hanging on the rim, developing bank shots and hooks they could scale up later. For Kareem, the constraint became a craft school. The skyhook endured because it solved everything the ban tried to limit: length, timing, and control. Take away the dunk and innovation finds air, which mattered once power finishes started stressing equipment and arenas needed answers. The next fix wasn't a rule, it was a wrench. 2 dunks, thousands of shards, 1 mandate. Reinforce everything. On November 13, 1979, Dawkins turned game action into cleanup duty in Kansas City against the Kings. The glass exploded and the floor turned into a glitter field. Weeks later in Philadelphia versus the Spurs, he did it again on a fast break. A 2-handed power dunk that ripped the rim down and sent everyone to find brooms. Games stopped, schedules bent, and the league suddenly had a safety problem it couldn't ignore. At first, fines and suspensions tried to send a message. Commissioner Larry O'Brien threatened $5,000 hits and time off for anyone who broke a backboard, but you can't penalize physics. The NBA needed equipment that survived impact. The fix arrived with hardware: breakaway rims that flexed under force and snapped back into place, and half-inch tempered glass that took the punishment without sending knives across the court. Arenas upgraded standards so a highlight wouldn't become a hazard and the show could go on. The ripple was huge. High flyers got to elevate without fear of ending a game. The league's product got louder and safer at the same time, and the dunk became a reliable headliner instead of a potential earthquake. Dawkins even named his slams, including the chocolate thunder flying, robinzine crying, teeth shaking, glass breaking, rump roasting, bun toasting, wham bam, glass breaker I am, jam. The rim learned to bend so the spectacle could breathe. Up next, a different kind of problem. When one scorer's isolation demands new permissions for everyone guarding him. So the league turned to a different fix: rewrite the rules so help could actually help. When one-on-one ball became the template, defenses needed new tools. Michael Jordan's ISO spacing made help arrive late and made weak side rules feel like shackles. Offenses cleared a side, hunted a switch, and let the best mid-range closer alive drag a second defender into illegal territory. You could send help early, but whistle risk lived everywhere, so teams played honest and got carved up. That style spread across the league, and the product skewed towards standstill watching. In 2001, the NBA rewrote the guidance. Teams could use zone concepts and vary coverages as the league removed the illegal defense barrier with a 22-6 vote plus 1 abstention. To prevent a camp in the paint parade, a defender couldn't sit in the lane for more than 3 seconds without closely guarding. The update paired with 2 tempo and contact tweaks. The backcourt count dropped from 10 to 8 seconds to force quicker advances, and the touch foul language was clarified so brief contact that didn't impede progress wasn't an automatic whistle. The ripple changed offense too. Stars shifted into more off-ball work, pin downs into curls, screen-the-screener actions, and pick and rolls that forced multiple rotations. Ball movement rose because zones demand it, and spacing became a weapon through quick decisions instead of static jab series. They legalized team defense to manage the solitary scorer. The next challenge lived off the court, where keeping a franchise player required a different kind of exception. Larry Bird, the man whose name lives in the CBA roster continuity, needed a legal loophole with a legend's name on it. How do you keep a legend without blowing up the cap? You make an exception with his name on it. In 1983, the league built Bird rights, the veteran free agent exception, to let teams go over the cap to re-sign their own players. Keep your star, keep your core, and don't watch the spreadsheet. Force a goodbye. The tension was simple math. The cap is a ceiling. Greatness doesn't fit neatly under ceilings. Bird rights added tiers so franchises could reward continuity even while operating above the cap. Non-Bird covers players with less than 2 consecutive years on the team, letting you re-sign up to 120% of the previous salary or 120% of the minimum, whichever pays more. It's a patch, not a splurge, but it keeps role players from walking for nothing. Stay 2 straight seasons and early bird kicks in. Now you can offer up to 175% of the prior salary or 105% of the league average with up to 4 years and 8% raises. That's mid-core money without cap space. Hit 3 consecutive seasons and Full Bird opens the vault. Up to the max salary, 5 years, and 8% annual bumps, all while already over the cap. Teams use this to lock pillars, plan around future extensions, and stagger deals instead of tearing rosters down. Bird made staying home a functional exception. Sometimes, though, a prodigy outgrows the rookie pay scale before anyone's ready, which is where the next exception stepped in with a name and a stopwatch. What happens when a 22-year-old wins MVP before his rookie deal even ends? The salary cap starts sweating. Derrick Rose got there first, and the league realized the pay scale treated future superstars like prospects. The result was a new lane in the CBA that let teams pay a true franchise piece, like one, earlier than usual, and specifically as those rookie-scale contracts came up. Enter the Derrick Rose rule, the higher max criteria for 5th-year eligible players. If a player on a rookie deal hits the benchmarks, MVP in any of the past 3 seasons, Defensive Player of the Year in the most recent season or 2 of the last 3, or All-NBA in the most recent season or 2 of the last 3, he can start his extension at up to 30% of the cap instead of the standard 25%. The deal must cover at least 4 new years, and it applies to first rounders and, in rare cases, second round or undrafted players with 4 years of service. Teams now plan for escalators. They negotiate 25 to 30% starting ranges that lock in only if the player nails those accolades in year 4. Recent beneficiaries include Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and LaMelo Ball, alongside earlier cases like Devin Booker and Luka Doncic. Reward the prodigies before they outpace the scale. Then guard against the opposite problem, a decision maker moving assets faster than anyone can replace them. Front offices needed a safeguard when the urge to deal outran common sense. Imagine trading away the future until the league confiscates your keys. That was Ted Stepien's Cavaliers in the early 80s, move after move, first flying out the door and nothing steady coming back. The result was a roster stuck in the mud and a franchise with no runway. Losing piled up because the cupboard was bare for years, and the league saw a competitive balance problem that wouldn't fix itself. So the Stepien rule arrived for 1984-85. You can't trade your first-round pick in consecutive future drafts unless you receive another first-rounder back. It sounds simple, but it reshaped deal-making. Teams started using pick swaps, trading the right to exchange draft positions without giving up the pick itself. They also leaned on protections, like lottery protection, which created a new wrinkle. If a protected pick doesn't convey, it can block trading the next year's pick to avoid breaking the rule. There's also the post-draft flip select a player, then trade his rights that night, since the pick is no longer future. Front offices live with a planning window that usually stretches up to 7 future drafts, mapping out what's tradable and what's locked. The rule forces at least every other year access to a first, keeping a rebuild path open. One owner's chaos became everyone's seatbelt, and while front offices got structure, the perimeter would soon get guardrails of its own. On the perimeter, contact itself became the debate. In the early 90s, a guard met a forearm before he met daylight. Teams turned the arc into customs. The Knicks and Pistons built reputations on steering dribbles with an offhand, riding hips, and walling off the paint so thoroughly that possessions looked like tug-of-war with a ball. The league saw artistry getting stuck at the point of attack and cut a new lane in 1994-95. Officials limited hand-checking above the free throw line extended and in the backcourt, so a palm on a hip became a foul instead of a tactic. It didn't flip overnight. Each season added teeth, and by 2004-05, any contact that killed speed or rhythm drew a whistle. Defenders had to move their feet, shade angles, and live with help instead of clamps. The shift sat inside a broader freedom of movement push, open lanes, reward skill, and speed up the show. The numbers told on the old style. Scoring efficiency climbed as ball handlers reached the paint without being steered off course. Pace nudged up, more space meant more kickouts, and the three-point shot grew into a staple because drives actually collapsed defenses. Guards thrived, assists rose, and the game tilted toward skill and speed. Even training materials flagged classic hand-checkers as what not to do, making freedom of movement the standard rather than a point of emphasis. The dribble got air and officials got a new job: manage the clock down to tenths when everything happens fast. So timing got its own boundary line. Can you really catch and shoot in a tenth of a second? That question didn't live in barbershops, it landed on the scorer's table at Madison Square Garden. January 15th, 1990, Knicks vs. Bulls, clock melting down. After a timeout shuffle, the inbound found Trent Tucker with 0.1 on the board. He caught, pivoted, and drilled a three that sent the Garden roaring and the visitors fuming. Phil Jackson and the Bulls filed a formal protest within 48 hours. The league office reviewed it, referee crew led by Ronnie Nunn had upheld the shot, and while the win stood, the moment didn't. Logic and physics got a seat at the desk. The NBA's vice president called it physically impossible to catch a ball and shoot in 1/10 of a second, and the league had codified that logic the next season. The 0.3 second rule arrived for 1990-91. You need at least 3/10 to catch and release. With 0.2 or 0.1, only a tip or a high lob counts. No gather, no pivot, no fade, just touch and redirect. It lives in the expiration of time comments of the rulebook, and it spread beyond the NBA to high school in 1995 and to FIBA in 2010. End of game playbooks changed. Coaches diagram lobs at the rim, teach volleyball taps, and drill clock up so the touch starts the timer. And when judgment pushes physics to the edge, another safeguard steps in. Sometimes the fix is simple. Add a camera where the game gets decided. One blown whistle opened the door for a whole new tool. February 6, 2012, Blazers vs. Thunder. With 6 seconds left, Kevin Durant drove, released, and LaMarcus Aldridge swatted it. Officials ruled goaltending. Replay later showed the block was clean, ball hadn't touched the backboard. The call tied the game, sent it to overtime, and the Thunder won. That miss didn't fade, it snowballed. Fans fumed. Portland pointed to the tape. The league agreed the call was wrong, and the fallout became policy. Starting in 2012-13, officials could use instant replay in the final 2 minutes and overtime to review potential goaltending and basket interference. If a block was clean, they could erase free throws. If the ball hit the glass first, they could award points. Endings got a second set of eyes, not a shrug. The tweak reached other gray areas too, like restricted area reviews on late charges, putting precision on blocks versus blocks charges under the rim, and there were breaks to avoid turning crunch time into a film session. Only specific triggers, only in the closing moments, and no fishing expeditions. That balance mattered. Precision over panic when it matters most. The rulebook kept evolving from there. Clips, memos, and off-season updates chasing the next clever edge. From there, the focus shifts to how the league fine-tunes edge cases. The rulebook didn't stop at one memo. It keeps chasing creativity. Every offseason, the competition committee meets, reviews clips, and drafts tutorials for referees. Players respond with new counters, so the league publishes more video, adds a point of emphasis, and tweaks interpretations midstream. It's a loop. Invent, exploit, adjust, tie the threads together, and you see the timeline. In 2011-12, the rip-through got downgraded to a non-shooting foul unless it flowed into a real jumper. That nudged scores to blend sweeps into legit releases instead of stopping for free throws. A few years later, landing space protections took center stage after dangerous closeouts led to flagrant upgrades on review. Even when intent was unclear, officials still head to the monitor on these. Because safety now anchors the call, then 2021-22 tightened the net around non-basketball moves. Sideways leaps into defenders, abrupt veers off path, off-arm hooks, and leg kicks stopped earning whistles. The video rulebook trained crews with side-by-side examples so they could spot abnormal launches in real time. Early that season, foul rates dipped and games flowed cleaner, and spacing benefited because defenders could contest without bracing for bait. These shifts rarely need formal rewrites. Mid-season POEs nudge behavior faster than new text. The conversation continues and each change leaves a name or a move attached to it, setting up one last look at what that pattern adds up to, which brings us to the simple through line. The NBA evolves because players force it to. The NBA rulebook reads like a diary of players who force the league to change the terms of engagement. Every tweak trails a move that stretched what was possible, then drew a line around it. Skill met policy, and the court kept evolving. Now you tell me, which move gets outlawed next, and whose name belongs on that memo? Drop it in the comments and defend your pick. Somewhere, a trainer is clipping film of a new trick, a coach is scheming around it, and an official is practicing the whistle. Greatness writes, the rulebook edits, and next season, something you love might be illegal.